after a few weeks of absence due to getting sick and traveling also in different parts of the world, I'm glad to be resuming our Sutta Exploration series today. I wanted it to be a different sutta than the last one, I think, that Sister Dhammadina had sent out, which I think it was the Anusaya Suttas. But there's so much going on in the world that not just the world, the conventional world only, but also the world of Dhamma, the Dhamma practice, or what's left of the Dhamma, and the bits and pieces that we have. So I found it to be more appropriate to go back to the Anguttara Nikāya, the numerical discourses, and try to tackle the issues that Lord Buddha tackled, but from the angle that we are living in the modern, so-called modern world of ours. So the sutta that I will be mostly focusing on will be the Hirī Ottappa Sutta, which is a very important principle. Hirī and Ottappa. Hirī means wise moral shame. Ottappa means wise moral fear or dread. Two of which we don't have in society today. It's being depleted. In fact, it's being encouraged for society to relinquish these things. I know in my days as a psychotherapist, whether it was in the academic arena or in practice, these two words they went after. Little did we know what was really being done. So it's very sneaky, and it's been in the works for a long time, in making society become bankrupt, justifying it, meanwhile. The removal of shame. Always shame is seen as something negative today, that we need to get rid of. And same thing with fear. Well, Lord Buddha did, talk about these, and when he was asked again and again as to the end of days of the sasana, or the world, in fact, what leads to the destruction of the world, literal destruction. And he said, when society no longer has Hirī and Ottappa, that is when you know you are living in the end of days. And look around us, that's what we have. Not just, again, sadly, in the world, the conventional world, but also within the arena of Dhamma, in the tradition of Buddhism as such, we have that. And every week I get emails from individuals asking some very pertinent questions about things that they are seeing. Some monks do, some very, very, very notable or known or celebrity status monks doing things that students are now perplexed. They can't talk about it openly because of fear that that might bring something, that might stain the sasana. So, but they're feeling guilty, but they also know in their hearts there's something wrong with this behavior. Every week I get nowadays. It was less frequent. Now I'm getting it every week, which is quite telling of what's really happening. So for that reason, I wanted to, or those reasons rather, I wanted to delve into this and try to provide some support for practitioners today in the world, because it's almost happening every day. And people are waking up. Yes, there's a majority of the population that is going to sleep as well. But I'm very more concerned about the people who are waking up. I'd like to put the spotlight back onto the suttas and go in, dive into the suttas together and find what Lord Buddha has instructed us in dealing with such situations. So today's sutta, Hirī Ottappa Sutta, comes from the Anguttara Nikāya, book of the sevens. So 7.65, it's a 65th sutta from the book of the sevens, the numerical discourses. Now, even though this will be the main sutta, I will go in and out of other suttas that I think most of them will be from the Anguttara Nikāya as well, to really present a fuller picture. And that way you could also, whatever suttas I cover, by the way, that's why I give you the sutta name, the number, and most often I also have them translated and they're on the website, which you can go and look them up on mindrelease.com, released past tense, or any other sources of suttas you might find online, whether it's Sutta Central or Access to Insight or any other text you might have. So, yeah, so we need to go back to the suttas to find some credence, some foundation, instead of just going off of what some teacher or some bhikkhu is saying. Lord Buddha is our teacher, no one else. Not this Ajahn, not this Bhante. So your faith ultimately has to be on the Dhamma itself. The Dhamma you experience in your heart. That's the confidence that no one can take away. Confidence that no one can take away from you, which comes from your practice, but it has to be augmented, supported by the suttas, which is incomparable. There's no comparison with anything out there. So, having said that, we need to understand that Lord Buddha did not just teach about meditation for 45 years. This is something that many people get completely wrong. He didn't just teach meditation. He also spent those 45 years of teaching to encourage society to purify itself. You cannot have Dhamma without purifying your heart, purifying the family, the individual. So he was trying to improve society around him. And he created a sample of a purified society, and he called it the Sangha. And that's why we take the 5 precepts every day. You're trying to relive those principles. So essentially what he did was he spoke up. He pointed out the deceptions, the lies, and the stupidity of society around him. He didn't keep quiet like most bhikkhus today are. When they see something wrong, they don't talk about it, which is very odd. And when you do, if you're lucky enough to find 1 or 2 bhikkhus into a whole entire sasana who are speaking on things that are happening, there's this mountain of critique that comes and pointing of the fingers and saying, oh, you're practicing wrong speech. According to the Brahmins at the time of Lord Buddha's contemporaries, in their mind, Lord Buddha was practicing wrong speech. Did you know that? He was disrespecting the establishment. He was not respecting the Brahmins of his day. And that's why you see all these clashes throughout the suttas. A group of Brahmins come and they're like, huffing and puffing, and they're angry at Lord Buddha. How could you say that Brahmins are supposed to be respected? Why are you sitting over there? I am much older than you, so you have to get up. You have suttas like this. And Lord Buddha, there's one that comes to mind, not part of the sutta, of course. He says, let me give you an example, an analogy. He says, imagine a chicken, a hen, that just laid 6 eggs. And out of those 6 eggs, poop, 1 chick hatches, breaks through the eggshell and comes out. And then the other one, and then the other one, then the other one, then the other one. He says, whom should the other 5 respect and bow down to? Which chick should the other chicks bow down to? And all the Brahmins go, well, of course, the one that hatched first. And he says, there you go. I hatched first. Lord Buddha, becoming an arahant, is coming out of the eggshell of stupidity, of deceptions, of the delusions that the Brahmins were very much enmeshed in. That didn't go well with so many people of his contemporaries. So for 45 years, he did give tools for the Dhamma, but Dhamma also means truth, justice. It means beauty. It means living the real, tasting the real nature of things, experiencing harmony. Do we see that around us? There's so much deception going on. So Dhamma is allowing us, is showing us to get to the harmonious state of being, how things are supposed to be, how they should be. Unfortunately, we're living in a world where anything goes. Anything goes. We've decriminalized drugs. One time I was traveling through Italy and I saw a vending machine, and this, I think it was on a Friday, I saw these 2 teenagers. I guess they were on a date or something, and they just put some money into this vending machine. They got out, what did they get? Packets of marijuana, cannabis, which is now not becoming legal. Thailand right now is a joke with this. You want to corrupt a society? You delude the mind of the public, especially the young generation of the future society members. So when you decriminalize drugs, you decriminalize crimes. And that's what's happening. In America, I think a year ago or so, they came up with the ruling that if somebody steals anything less than $700 worth of stuff, the police will not interfere. I was shocked because I saw actual footage of people standing there, security guards with guns and everything. They're standing there and people are watching someone who just comes in, looks, and they already know which one is going to be less than $700 total. They were breaking electrical equipment from markets, supermarkets, or supply stores, and they just walk outside. I don't know if it has ever happened in society, human society, where stealing was so blatantly obvious, in your face kind of thing. Adultery is normalized. Things that are really shocking. I remember people were telling me in the past, 5-6 years ago, of these shows on Netflix that are about drugs or committing suicide. And everybody was waiting to go ahead and watch the episodes. I remember colleagues that would come in and say on, whenever we met as therapists, they would say, oh, I binged on Netflix this weekend. What did you watch? Oh, I watched this show or that show on drugs. How to make drugs, how to justify crime. In the hero of the movie or the whatever you call it is engaged in those activities. So what is happening is basically the sense of shame and fear is being plucked out of people's hearts. So what this means is you are normalizing. That's a fancy word in psychology and psychotherapy that's used in social sciences. You normalize something. So the person becomes desensitized. They are no longer shocked that this is inappropriate, at the very least. They no longer raise an eyebrow. They're like, yeah, so what? Someone not too long ago, one of my students, came to me shocked, and they said, Bhante, do you know that in Los Angeles there are restaurants that serve human flesh? Cannibalism. They even have a website. You can go, they said. Of course, the address is not listed, but there is a phone number. People are eating people, you know? No one's talking about this. You have drag queens and men who are barely wearing anything going in and into schools, into libraries, exposing themselves, holding up books that talk about sexually explicit things with pictures in them, color pictures, describing things to infants that barely are able to speak, barely are able to read. What is happening is, on a grand scale, the corruption of society. When you have drugs being okay, in fact, encouraged, parents are actually sitting together with their children and smoking weed, cannabis in the house. And then they're wondering why their children are not doing so well at school. Their attention is lacking, and they're finding fault with the teachers. The vulgarity and the idiocy of a society is very related, very much so, with the presence or absence, in this case, of Hirī and Ottappa. So what these things are doing is obliterating the rarity, the significance of being born as a human. I'm shocked to see so many times that animals, dogs, street dogs, are so much more honorable than many humans I've met. Imagine that. I never thought I would be able to say that in my lifetime, but this is a fact. A dog will never eat another dog. That's one. I've seen better discipline shown by dog parents towards their pups. If you have a dog with a litter of pups, it's babies, and one or more of them, member of the family, let's say, starts to act out, not listening to the mom or dad, guess what the dad does or the mom does? They discipline them. They bark. Sometimes I've even seen them, the parent come, the mom or the dad, gently bite the ear of the dog and pull them over to the side, or nudge them with their nose. And the pup immediately gets disciplined. If you have undisciplined dogs, it's because of their owners, not their parents. And that's what we have today. So if we have a society that Buddhist societies specifically, that of lay people, let's say, who are lacking in Hirī and Ottappa, wise moral shame and wise moral fear, it is not necessarily only because of the lay people, but because of the bhikkhus and so-called bhikkhunis and all the teachers who are supposed to, we are supposed to take care of the sasana. That's why we're in robes, not to hold titles. I'm a bhikkhuni, I'm a bhikkhu, I'm a teacher. None of that matters ultimately when there is no Hirī and Ottappa. Wise moral shame and wise moral fear. Instead of building monasteries, instead of building, I don't know what, useless things. Building a temple, building a monastery is useless, is meaningless if you don't have practitioners, not chanters, not those who go and do rituals. It's the third thing that will drop when a person becomes a sotapanna, rites and rituals. So if I'm worshipfully attached to those things, how in the world am I even going to become a sotapanna? But it's easy. It's easy to tell people, oh, this chant, if you chant this, then you're going to ward off petas or hungry ghosts. You have bhikkhus in Asia, so-called ayasmas, venerable ones call themselves, teaching people that they are now normalizing. You see what I'm saying? Normalizing chanting and rituals as the practice. It is not the practice. It's a supplemental thing on the side. It is never the practice. But it's easy. You will get a lot of funding, a lot of new temples and monasteries, hectares and hectares of land you will be able to purchase. In fact, they will purchase it for you, the donors. Where's the sasana going now? Well, it is exactly where it is. In shambles. And that's why it is rare. Having said all that, it is extremely rare to be born as a human at this time. Having said all that, I will also say that it is extremely rare to be born as a human today because you still have the Dhamma. Despite all that I mentioned, we still have the Sutta. Who knows when the next time you come around as a human being, whether you will find the Dhamma. In fact, there's a high likelihood that you will not for a very long time. Imagine, you have the ability right now to practice, to study, to practice, to listen to the Dhamma, to really know. In this human body, you will not be able to practice. Even as a deva, unless you've established yourself in strong faith, unless you've had very good companionships with practitioners, you've had good kalyana mittas, even if you haven't attained, but the resonance, the echoing of the Dhamma will come through, even as a deva. But the likelihood of that happening is less and less and less because you're surrounded by so much pleasure. So now is the time to be practicing. Despite all this chaos that's happening, the ugliness. So a few suttas that I mentioned before I jump in to the main sutta today. One comes from the where Lord Buddha talks about the debts one has to pay, and he also mentions about the hell realms, which, by the way, is another thing that keeps coming up. Many students around the world, people that I don't even know, are interested in hearing about listening to talks on hells from a Buddhist perspective. That tells you something. People are waking up. They're saying there's got to be a consequence to all this inequity, this ugliness, this vulgarity I'm seeing. Because I have been looking for refuge in the legal system, where the government would come in and say, no, you cannot do that. You cannot display yourself almost naked, engaging in sexual acts in public and call it a pride of something. What kind of a pride is that? What are you prideful of? Ugliness? Animals don't even behave like that. Animals, four-legged animals don't even behave like that. And you're supposed to be even a carrier of a higher education, a degree, have a prestigious position in society. What is this? There are consequences, therefore. You know, there were times where in different suttas where you had one incident where, well, actually more than one, but in one sutta, where two friends, one was a practitioner of the ox way, the other one was the practitioner of a dog way. Roughly English translation. Basically, what these people would do is, if I behave like a dog, walk on all fours, you know, try to rub my head with my leg, you know, try to scratch myself and get off the, you know, the fleas out of my hair, eat like a dog, slurp water like that if I'm going to drink, then I will somehow become or experience moksha, liberation. I know we laugh at that, but it's quite stupid. But for the person, there's different gradations of ignorance, right? Stupidity. But here is an example. So that path, and to this day, you would find them in India, by the way. They're not as frequent, I would say. And the other friend was a practitioner of the ox way. They both, so the ox was, as you basically would eat grass and eat like, you know, moving its head and try to walk, all naked, of course. And people were accepting them. And they even would bow to these people, offer them food. That's how stupid societies can be. If they see enough of it, they'll say, oh, I guess this is normal, so I guess I'll have to accept this. So these two come to Lord Buddha and ask to get a guarantee, a confirmation. And Lord Buddha, I think he starts to avoid it, the giving them a response. And then finally he says, the only place you're going to end up in is not a heaven, but in the worst of hells. One of them is shocked enough to immediately wake up from that delusion, and I believe he even takes on the robes, from what I recall. Because Lord Buddha explains to them, what is this? What are you doing? If you act like something, you will become that. Nowadays, in parts of the world, in so-called Western, advanced, civilized societies, you have communities allowing this. When I heard this, I was in KL. I heard it from a student over there about things that she had heard in Canada, taking place in Canada. There's this phenomenon called furries. What is that? I said. And she was like, exactly, Bhante, I didn't know either. And I said, what is it? It's like, apparently, parents now, when their child comes over and says, Mommy, I identify as a cat, guess what the parent is doing? Oh, honey, I accept that. So let's put a sandbox for you over there for you to go to the bathroom. So now the child is behaving like a cat in the 21st century. And not only that, but legally they are being protected. In fact, schools are having to change the bathroom structure in primary school to make room for these children that come in and identify themselves as cats. This is not fairy tale. This is happening today. This is not only happening in Canada, by the way. So I don't know how low humanity is going to stoop before some people wake up. And when I heard about this, immediately my mind went to that incident with Lord Buddha and those two idiots, the dog wannabe and the ox wannabe. What are these people doing? Somebody was asking me, what do I do, Bhante, if somebody comes and says, I identify as a bear or I identify as a lion? And they were serious in their question because they don't know how, because society is also tying your hands because they're saying you cannot say anything to that. I was like, see? So I just said, well, next time you see someone who behaves like that or says that they identify as a bear or a lion, you take them to the zoo and you put them in the lion's den or in the bear's den along with its cousins, with its friends. And let's see how long their identification as a bear or a lion will last. They're going to be ending up as food for the lions, or quickly identify themselves as chicken and run out of there. It's stupid. There's no shame. There's no fear. Absolute stupidity, and most of the monks are not lifting a finger. They're not addressing any of this. What kind of teachers are we? What have we come to? Your years of vassa mean nothing. Nothing if you don't uphold the Dhamma. But now I want to get to that portion I was mentioning to you about the, it's the Inna Sutta, the debts. It's from the Anguttara Nikāya 6.45. This is a quick mention so that you know which sutta I am referring to here. So in this, Lord Buddha, this is in support of the main sutta that I will be talking about. There's so much happening in the world, and I also have been away for a few weeks because of sickness, as I was mentioning to some of you. All this traveling gets to you, you know. So I'm still there, but anyhow. So Lord Buddha says this: understand this, bhikkhus, I do not see a prison so terrible, so harsh, and painfully worse as those of the hell realm, or that of the animal realm, rendering them as mighty obstacles for the attainment of freedom from suffering, the unsurpassed security from bondage. All these happenings around us, they can easily dissuade us. It can easily convince us to stay away or to feel or become depressed about the human condition, the world. Remember, for 3 years, they've been injecting panic and fear by the truckloads into our systems, every single one of us. What does that do to a human being? It ruins you. It depletes you of love, for example, self-love, love for others, compassion. Hence my insistence also in the books and in the talks and the guided meditations, I always try to focus on the metta sooner or later, to allow the person to feel that universal, benevolent, kind, loving experience in their heart for themselves first, and then to open it up. That counteracts all this panic-driven fear-mongering that's been going on. Every day, every month, there's some kind of a war. Some panic button has been pushed. That's unnatural for your normal system, central nervous system. It ruins you. But when you have a few $1 trillion income making, generating pharmaceutical companies in the world, from the time of the Nazis, many of them actually were working at the time of the Nazis. They still are working. All these big names, Pfizer, this, that, they're from there. They're making money off of getting people sick. That's why you need to maintain your focus and bring your attention back to what brings sanity and love and joy in your heart. And from that to also open up to the world around you, so there won't be any confusion. So these people are thriving on confusing society, confusing children. Anything goes. When I was a teenager, I was a mess. I think most of us are. It's part of the biology. You know, when the planet was forming, it was called the protoplanet, I'm sorry. It didn't even have a solid surface. It was still confused because it was constantly being hit by meteors and also asteroids, volcanic eruptions, so it didn't have a place to stand on. But once it crystallized, once it solidified by cooling down the temperatures, then you could see land shaping, forming on its surface. The human brain is no different, and these people know that. That's why they're going after the children. Telling a boy that you could be a girl, telling a girl that you could be a boy. No, you can't. There's this thing called biology. Biology. That's beyond contemporariness of our thought and thinking. There needs to be wise moral shame and wise moral fear to halt the person. What am I doing? I'm ruining society. I'm ruining our future. There's no harmony there, which is what the Dhamma is trying to do, by the way. Bring a sense of harmony. And that's why I've been talking more on the hell realms, to help people understand there's a consequence to all these actions that they're committing. You're not going to get away with this. Basically, that's what Lord Buddha was saying. It's not like somebody's sitting there going to punish you, per se, someone outside of you. Your own proclivities, your own momentum that you started, wound up throughout your lifetime, that itself is the thing that will get you. Because there's this thing called death, inescapable death. So that's what Lord Buddha was concerned about, telling people, please be concerned about the hell realms. They're there waiting for you if you keep this up. Another sutta, very good sutta in relation to the practice, is the Akkhana Sutta, lost or missed opportunities. That's one way of translating it. Another way is, in English, we could say, not being the right time, the appropriate time for the person. So this comes from, again, the Anguttara Nikāya. This one is from the book of the Eights, and it is book, Sutta number 8.49. Anguttara Nikāya 8.29. So Akkhana Sutta, the lost opportunities. So this one I actually have a segment here, which I have here for you. So I translated it some time ago. I'll read this. Bhikkhus, there are these 8 instances that are lost opportunities, and therefore are not the right times to live and practice the holy life. What are these 8? It is when the Tathagata appears in the world, the worthy one, perfectly awakened, endowed with right knowledge and conduct, the well-gone, knower of the worlds, the incomparable, tamer of those to be tamed, the teacher of gods and humans, the awakened one, the Buddha, born into the world. And the Tathagata proclaims the Dhamma, which leads to peace, security, and Nibbana, as he teaches it to the world. Meanwhile, however, because this was from the book of the Eights, meanwhile, however, this person is reborn in hell. So when there is a Tathagata, this person who's born, he's born in the hell realms. Despite there being this rare opportunity for a Buddha to appear in the world, the person who's reborn in hell is simply unreachable. There's no redemption there unless you finish your time there. the intensity of your negative kamma, the heaviness of it, becomes so depleted that naturally the person is, the next time they die, they will be reborn in a higher realm. Maybe even a higher state of the hell realms, because there's so many layers to it. So that would be the first lost opportunity, Lord Buddha says, to live and practice the holy life. Second is the person is reborn in the animal realm as an insect, even if as a dog. Even if you were to come close to the Buddha and he would, let's say, or a lion or a bird or a butterfly landing on the robe of Lord Buddha, that close. Lost opportunity. There's no way you will be able to taste the Dhamma. No way. The third, the person is reborn in the realm of hungry ghosts, the petas. Again, you cannot teach them the Dhamma. They cannot practice because of the level of misery there. Fourth, the person is reborn in either the nothingness or the neither perception nor non-perception formless realms. These are the 7th and 8th jhana equivalent realms. To live out his long, long life, lacking in percipient mind, to hear and understand the Dhamma. Lord Buddha's teachers, 2 of them, Alara Kalama and Uddhakarama, were reborn there, as well as Asita, who was the predictor, the first predictor of baby Siddhartha Gautama, when he held him and he started crying, and they asked him, Bhante, is everything okay with our prince? Is he going to be met with dangers? He's like, no, he's going to be fine. He says, I'm just crying these tears because when you're done, when this great teacher starts to teach, I will not be around. I will be because he was going to be reborn into the higher, these non-percipient realms, and miss out an entire, who knows how many Buddha eras he would be missing. So that also is a missed opportunity. Next is interesting, these other ones. The person is reborn in some foreign land among uneducated barbarians, and where bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, male or female lay disciples, are nowhere to be seen or encountered. Now, of course, we have the age of the internet. You have, as I was mentioning, you have suttas and Dhamma talks all over the place. But in those days, they didn't have that, of course. So if you lived on the outskirts of a major capital city, you had much less opportunities to meet with education, with especially individuals who would be teaching culture and different things. So the person would not have the curiosity develop in them because they're too far out. In those days it was called like the province, outside provinces, or the edges of the empire or the kingdom. So if you were to be born though in those areas, forget it. Even though there might be a Buddha living there in the capital city. But in those days, people didn't travel as much. There must have been a need, and it costs a lot of money, and there were always bandits and burglars and criminals on the road. So even though the person is born as a human in the same region in the world, but on the outskirts, that also is a lost opportunity. Next, Lord Buddha says, the person is reborn in the central provinces as he holds on to wrong views. He's right there in the central provinces, but he's still attached to, nope, a Brahmin is this, nope, a good Buddhist practitioner is supposed to be doing this, doing that. Wrong views. With a distorted understanding of oneself and the world, while reflecting, there is no good or benefit in giving, in being generous to others, or in making an offering. So the person basically is saying there's no outcome to doing good. They simply believe that there's no outcome. And there are no results for good or evil actions. There's no this world, no other world, no mother or father. There are no spontaneously arisen beings in existence. And in this world, there really are no recluses and dedicated religious practitioners who, by finding the right path, have, excuse me, have realized both this and the other world by themselves, and having seen and known them personally, they declare it. So basically, such a person, even though they're living in the same vicinity as a Buddha, they are so radically attached to their wrong views that they say, no. So they're cynics, in another way of saying it, cynical people, or Stoics. They're like, no, we just. They have shut the door for spiritual growth, the possibility of it, or they always push it into some nostalgic past, saying, oh, those days, it could never happen. Oh, Venerable Sariputta, oh, we will never have such beings today. Well, why not? The Dhamma is available. If you have as much faith as Venerable Sariputta, as much dedication as Venerable Sariputta, as much purity as Venerable Sariputta, what's stopping you? Such a person says, no way, they're done. So they themselves cut the cord, and they cut themselves from the cliff, and they just fall into the abyss of ignorance and miss another huge opportunity, despite the fact that they're born as a human. Next is, the person is reborn in the central provinces, but he is stupid. With saliva, I love this image, with saliva dripping from his mouth. These are not my words, these are Lord Buddha's. Stupid with saliva dripping from his mouth, unwise, stubborn, obstinate in his ways, unable to understand the true meaning or to distinguish between what is correctly stated and what is wrongly stated. These are the perfect followers. These are the ones who never think. And the images of saliva dripping is basically a person who's turned into a vegetable. They don't use their rational mind. They just say, oh, show me the dotted line so I can sign. What do you want me to sign? And that is what, this is a perfect example of today's society. No one asks, why do you want me to do this? Why are you taking my rights from this and that and this and that? You're controlling me more and more and more. You're tightening the grip on me. I cannot even breathe. We've become just simple consumers, obedient consumers. Never questioning. Not to start fights, not no. Just to know. And if it doesn't agree with your principles, to say absolutely no. You're not a dullard, you're not stupid. You don't have saliva dripping down from your mouth. I hope. Next, Lord Buddha says, the person is reborn in the central provinces, and he is intelligent. Interesting. Wise, eager to learn, humble in his ways, and able to understand the true meaning and to distinguish between what is correctly stated and what is wrongly stated. Perfect person, basically. The right stuff they have. But, Lord Buddha says, such a person is born at a time when no Tathagata appears in the world. No Arahat. So, no awakening for there to happen. Because there is no Dhamma in the world. That is where we are headed. Fast. That is my fear. That it's coming sooner than we think. Unless we do something about it. And then Lord Buddha goes ahead and says, there is, however, because one right time, the right instance to live and practice the holy life. And when is that? It is when the Tathagata appears in the world, the worthy one, perfectly awakened, endowed with right knowledge and conduct, the well-gone, knower of the worlds, the incomparable, tamer of those to be tamed, the teacher of gods and humans, enlightened in the Buddha, born into the world, and the Tathagata proclaims Dhamma, which leads to peace, security, and Nibbana as he teaches it to the world. Right at that time, Someone is reborn in the central provinces, and he is intelligent, wise, eager to learn, humble in his ways, and able to understand the true meaning and to distinguish between what is correctly stated and what is wrongly stated. It is this, bhikkhus, that is considered to be the one unique opportunity, the right time to live and practice the holy life. Having gained a good human birth at a time when the good Dhamma is still proclaimed, those who do not seize that right moment miss such a rare opportunity. I wanted to mention this sutta. It's so prevalent, it's so pertinent, rather, to what we are going through. You're not just practicing for you only. You're practicing for the perpetuation, for the extended lifespan of the sasana. Every time you have a moment of sati, know this for a fact, that you are making sure that the Dhamma lives for one extra moment. Every time you have a moment of sati, every time you are practicing sīla, you are protecting the Dhamma. How glorious is that? That brings so much joy to my heart and to all of the hearts of practitioners, as well as to all those who have gone before us. We heal this planet. The planet doesn't have problems with it other than a lack in wise moral shame and wise moral fear. The planet heals itself beautifully. Just leave it alone. Don't create more disharmonious, unnatural situations for the planet. We are part of the planet. Many are the wrong times, Lord Buddha continues, that are talked about, that come to obstruct the path, but few are those occasions when the Tathagatas appear. Rare events to occur in the universe, indeed. But to come face to face with them and be in their presence is such an extraordinarily great fortune. Yet even more rare is to get the chance to do so while being a human being and while the sublime Dhamma is still being taught. This in itself is the great incentive to strive for oneself and break free. So use your rare human birth. This is an unbelievably rare opportunity, despite what's happening in the world. I don't encourage people to put their heads in the sand and say, oh, okay, this too shall pass and this too shall pass, or run out into some mountain hut and pretend nothing's happening and waiting for it to go away, and while we're not doing anything. This is an engaged path. Let's not forget. Lord Buddha did not go and isolate himself forever. He would constantly go back to society, heal society, meet society when they would come and offer dana. He would do all that. That is true humanistic Buddhism. Buddhism is humanistic. It doesn't need that extra adjective, actually. But what we have turned it into is a dogma, a cult, a series of meaningless rites and rituals. Lord Buddha shuns a path that is based on tradition, and that's what we have. You go to Thailand, you go to Sri Lanka, you go to Burma, that's what we have. The so-called Theravada tradition to which I belong, or any of the other traditions. It's become a tradition. We just follow what they did. Well, Lord Buddha's contemporaries had been doing that, and he criticized them to bits. We've become them again. Under the guise, under the garb, under the title of Buddhist this time. It doesn't change the fact. You need not just follow because it's a tradition. The Dhamma is alive. It is not a tradition within a frame, within, cemented. well, it is supposed to be this way. It is supposed to be. That is what my tradition, and that's one of the reasons why people will not identify a bhikkhu as a bhikkhu if the bhikkhu is not wearing the color robes that they're used to seeing, because their teachers did not teach them properly. I went to Thailand and I saw it with my own eyes. Monks don't even respect people in this color robe, which was one of the original. Venerable Anya Kundanya's color robe was this. Dark blood color robe, the texts say. But the colors don't matter. When the tradition as such doesn't matter, you look at the Dhamma for what it is. You don't hold on to, well, my teachers in the back, their lineages. That means nothing. Your teacher is Lord Buddha. The Dhamma is your teacher. But people hold on. Same way the Brahmins were doing, by the way, holding on to the Vedas. So Lord Buddha had to dismantle that and explain to them. Many of the Nikāya suttas are all about that. Teaching people to wake up. Unfortunately, we don't have a living Buddha now to teach the bhikkhus to wake up. But we do have the suttas. We do have the Vinaya, and which has a lot of suttantas in it. But no one's looking. They're worshipping the rules. So, nobody's paying attention to the Dhamma in there. That's why we've lost the spirit of the Vinaya. We waltz around saying, oh, I practice 227 rules. Who cares? When you've lost your humanity as you're doing that. You've lost your freshness, being in the present moment. And many of those rules are actually minor rules. As we know from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, where Lord Buddha said, if the Sangha just decides to get rid of, these are not even like a practice. These are not just practice. Having achieved a good human birth and come to listen to and learn the Dhamma that is well taught by diligently practicing again and again, as they do so now, putting into work what the great teacher taught, they live the unsurpassed holy life, while penetrating to its core as they use this opportunity, that is, the right time. So you must live and practice, staying ever mindful, restraining yourself from any leakages, as you come to experience the path declared by the Tathagata, the One, the kinsman of the Sun, thus protecting oneself from the bait, keeping one drifting in the domain of Mara, by exposing and cutting off all the underlying negative tendencies. These are the ones released from the clutches of death, who, although still living in the world, have now destroyed all the contaminants and gone far beyond to the other shore. This is a beautiful sutta that I couldn't resist, including in today's exploration, but it is not the main sutta, as I keep saying. This was the Akkana Sutta, the Lost Opportunities, which I highly recommend you go and read it again, or listen to this portion again in the recording once it's done. And Akkana Sutta is from the Anguttara Nikāya 8.29. So now I'm going to go to the main sutta of today, which I keep referring to, which is the Numerical Discourses, AN 7.65, Hirī Ottappa Sutta, Wise Moral Shame and Wise Moral Fear. Mind you, all that I've covered and I shared with you thus far today were extremely important to support and supplement and augment what this particular sutta will be saying. Without further ado, let us jump in after just a sip of water. Excuse me. So here we go. Bhikkhus, when wise moral shame and wise moral fear are not present in you, then your moral compass has gone wrong, and you are no longer able to exercise the restraint over your sense faculties, which become in themselves doorways for further deception. The sense faculties, you can also think these are the pancha indriya, but they're also can be a proxy for your six senses, salayatan. Ultimately, you're guarding the sense doors. That's why we practice sati. That is sangvara, which is the restraint that Lord Buddha talks about in this and other suttas, like in the Nanda Sutta. Lord Buddha is talking to the bhikkhus at one point, and he says, how do you think that Nanda keeps purifying his heart every day from any obstructive states? Through the restraint of his sense faculties. And how does he do so? He practiced the satipatthana. He practiced throughout the day. During the day, first watch of the night, second watch of the night, he goes into the lion's posture, lions lying down, supine or reclining position with knees bent, one leg over the other, left leg over the right. But he determines to wake up at a certain time and wake up with sati. And when he does, he gets up with sati sampajanya. And he gets up and he starts doing the walking path meditation. That's the last watch of the night. And then he resumes. Every time he goes out, he's carrying his bowl, or you going to brush your teeth in the morning, or getting up in the middle of the night, going to the bathroom. What are you doing? Where's your mind? Are you on automatic pilot? It's important for you to be restraining your sense faculties, because your eyes are always taking you away from you. And your papanchas are there to grab hold of you. Your sankharas are ready to go into action, to drag you into further delusion and ignorance and the building up of more akusala kamma. Next, he says, when you are not exercising restraint over your sense faculties, then the development of your virtuous character fails, and you cannot live with virtue. So when you don't have restraint, it is inevitable. 100% of the time, you will actually fall into a state where you are not living with virtue. You're going to come back to me with a sense of, Bhante, I'm so sorry, I did this, I'm sorry. It's like, almost like I'm a priest or something, in a church, and like having a confession. It's like, no. Why though? You're feeling pain, misery, because the person has broken precepts. They're remorseful. So now the mind is all over the place. If they had just practiced restraint, however, the virtue would be intact. In fact, it would be blossoming, which means the mind is still. That's why we practice sīla, restraint. It's a protection. So you stay safe. You don't have this jitteriness. You don't have depression. You don't have anguish, worry. That's why you always have to come back. The little practicing of sīla you do every day, if you could just recall that, turn that into your refuge and just say, come back to your goodness. Oh, well, at least I didn't break that sīla. That is huge. That is very important. When there is no development of virtue in your life, then attaining to right collectedness of mind simply becomes impossible. Right collectedness of mind, remember, is samma samadhi, the last of the Noble Eightfold Path. When you are unable to attain to right collectedness of mind, then the knowledge and vision of seeing things as they are is impossible to occur in you. So when the person doesn't have right collectedness of mind, then there's no way that the person is going to experience that state where Lord Buddha says, yatha bhutang pajanati. The person sees how things come to be. So you see things for what they truly are. So the Dhamma is not a matter of you figuring out rationally, like, yeah, so this might be it. Like some people, well, some schools of thought in modern age have been pushing for understanding, for example, the paticca samuppada in a like compartmentalized way. Theories, concepts that they perceive, or they convince themselves that, yeah, I got this. I know, I have, even seeing flickers of light, this and that, and yeah, that must be this. Yeah, that's the link. Nonsense. Nonsense. Has nothing to do with the Dhamma. Dhamma is experiential. Of course, the understanding rationally is extremely important, but it is not. It's just it's a small part. It's experiential. When the knowledge and vision of seeing things as they are does not occur, then neither dispassion nor disenchantment takes place in you. So if you can't have the understanding of, oh, this is how things are happening, then it's impossible for you to see or to experience dispassion, viraga, or fading away, sometimes translated. Disenchantment, nibbida. For some reason, people still think that they're going to practice, they're going to attain to the jhanas, they're going to attain to some level of awakening, and they're going to still enjoy, passionate sex, or some sensuality, or enjoy the beauty of this. Have lust for life, wanderlust, No, this is like an oxymoron. They don't work together. That's why when a student comes and they're very adamant, they're very desiring to practice, and they're really wanting to have me as their teacher, something like that. And I was like, okay, but you have to understand, if you want to take this path of Dhamma, you must be ready to go where you haven't been before, which means beyond the point of no return. You will cross that. That means you're going to look at things that you really liked, and you're going to go, it doesn't do it anymore. Why though? Because you have seen knowledge of things as they are. You've seen the veil is down. It's pulled down. So how could you go and convince yourself, oh yeah, there's the actors on the screen are actually real, when you actually turn on the lights? It's a projection screen. It's a thin layer. How could you convince yourself? So of course, naturally, dispassion and disenchantment takes place. But in this case, if you don't have this, so you see, it starts from restraint. See how they're all linked up. And when neither dispassion nor disenchantment take place in you, then it is impossible for the knowledge and vision of freedom to occur. The person sees that, oh, there is freedom now. They're no longer pulled down to suffering. That's where you're freeing yourself from, by the way. Bhikkhus, a tree that has lost its branches and leaves can no longer fully develop its shoots, its bark, its sapwood, nor its heartwood. In the same manner, bhikkhus, when wise moral shame and wise moral fear are not present in you, then your moral compass has gone wrong, and you are no longer able to exercise the restraint over your sense faculties, which thereby become in themselves doorways for further deception. What is happening to the world is not just lowering the standards of morality, by the way. They're trying to eradicate the Dhamma. You must understand that. When we, as a population, are not creating a safe space where virtue, morality, where people's rights, where people's dignity is protected, where people's humanity, where beauty is protected, life is protected, harmony is protected, when all of these things are being stripped from us, then what they are doing is successfully uprooting the Dhamma and the possibility for awakening to happen. Not just for future generations, but especially for you. This was why Lord Buddha kept on teaching ceaselessly for 45 years. Ceaselessly. He knew this would happen, by the way. This is just natural law. That's why he called it, the three characteristics of existence. The first one is what? Anicca. Even the teachings themselves are impermanent. When you are not exercising restraint over your sense faculties, then the development of your virtuous character has failed, and you are no longer able to live with virtue. When there is no development of virtue in your life, then attaining to right collectedness of mind simply becomes impossible. When you're unable to attain to right collectedness of mind, then the knowledge and vision of seeing things as they are is impossible to occur in you. No matter how much you kick and scream and try to convince yourself that you're going from one retreat to the next, that you're definitely getting closer to attaining something, none of it is happening. None of it. That's why I would just shake my head, and when I would see people going to retreats, or while I was on retreats with them, and they're saying, yeah, and then even though there's supposed to be noble silence, and I would see people talking to each other, comparing notes as to what jhana or what attainments they got to. And then, meanwhile, I'm looking at their behavior as well. It says it all. Trust the behavior, never the words. Never the words. Trust the behavior. So the action is already there. It's there. But the person wants to believe that there's something that there isn't actually. And when neither dispassion nor disenchantment take place in you, then it is impossible for the knowledge of vision and vision of freedom to occur. Just something that I wanted to mention about hells and the danger. Again, because these are crucial aspects of the Dhamma. Lord Buddha has countless times talked about the immediacy of hell realms for individuals who don't live with the higher standards of virtue. Lying is the quickest way to end up in hell, by the way. Lying. It's not misinformation or disinformation that they use in the mainstream media. Oh, the government has been engaging in misinformation or disinformation tactics. No, they lied. We need to say it like it is. The person is cheating. The person is a prostitute, is not a sex worker. These are things that they keep infusing into our lexicon of today as a world population. Restraint becomes impactful, gains momentum when there is an understanding as to what will happen if I don't have restraint. And that's why it's extremely important to talk about the dangers that are waiting for a person, definitely, when they close their eyes for the last time. So in the Nikāya Sutta, or the hells, discourse on the hells, this one comes from the Book of the Fives, 145. So Anguttara Nikāya AN 5.145. And then also we have the Vera Sutta, which is the danger, and that one is the one preceding it, which is 5.1. Actually, no, it's the 5.174. My bad. I have actually copy pasted the section from the sutta here, so you can read it up later by going to it. So 5.174 is the Vera Sutta, dangers. And in it, Lord Buddha says, Bhikkhus, by possessing these 5 things, one ends up in hell as if deposited there. What are these 5? Destroying the life of living beings, taking what is not freely given, engaging in sexual misconduct, speaking falsely, and taking intoxicating or hallucinogenic substances that delude the mind. Bhikkhus, by possessing these 5 things, one ends up in hell as if deposited there. Know that. Keep that in the back of your mind. Coming back to the last portion of the wise moral shame and wise moral fear sutta, which is the main sutta, as I keep saying, 7.65, Anguttara Nikāya. Lord Buddha says, Bhikkhus, when wise moral shame and wise moral fear are present in you, so this is the state that he would encourage meditators or people to get to, then your moral virtues develop unhindered, unobstructed, as you exercise the restraint over your sense faculties, which become in themselves doorways for further understanding. This is heroic living. Not going and watching some stupid Marvel movies of Batman or something like that and feeling encouraged. Yes, a superhuman, Superman. There's no such thing. If you want superhuman skills, practice restraint and see how superior of a human being you will become, deserving of the Dhamma to grow and blossom in your heart. And restraint happens only if you have Hirī and Ottappa. Please do not forget that. When you exercise restraint over your sense faculties, then the development of your virtuous character is imminent, and you live with virtue. Excuse me. When there is thus the development of virtue in your life, then attaining to right collectedness of mind simply becomes inevitable. So you don't have to be, rock climbing here, with bare knuckles, just trying to just bare fingers with no ropes. You don't have to overcomplicate things. They build on each other. When you are thus able to attain to right collectedness of mind, then the knowledge and vision of seeing things as they are is possible for you. When the knowledge and vision of seeing things as they are does occur, then dispassion and disenchantment take place in you, which is a truly beautiful experience to have, where you see the beginnings of passion from afar. You see the thoughts that will lead, not could, but will lead to passionate states of mind, ruinous, tumultuous emotional states, where the mind will be all over the place. You see it from afar and you pull the plug on it. You pull away from it through the dispassion. And when dispassion and disenchantment take place in you, then the knowledge and vision of freedom occurs in you sooner or later. Bhikkhus, when a tree is endowed with its branches and leaves, it fully develops its shoots, its bark, its sapwood, and its heartwood. In the same manner, bhikkhus, when wise moral shame and wise moral fear are present in you, then your moral virtues develop unhindered, as you exercise the restraint over your sense faculties, which become in themselves doorways for further understanding. It becomes a natural flow. It becomes natural for you to, when you were at a place with friends or companions that keep using curse words or swear words, use vulgar language, and you feel that they're kind of, you being present there is kind of pushing you in that direction as well. And then you're reminded that, no, I take refuge, I take precepts every day, and I don't like to engage in that. It's kind of beneath me. I don't like to sully and dirty my mouth with those words. Plus, if you have a loved one or your teacher, what would your teacher or your loved one feel or think if they were to be standing next to you as you were engaging in such an exchange? Swear words and conversations. If that shuts you down immediately, close your mouth. Fight it with your every fiber of your being. And do yourself a favor. Find yourself better companions. That's what Lord Buddha calls evil companionship or friendships. A wise person needs to walk away from such things. Your companions need not to be overcomplicating your life. They need to be augmenting and supporting your progress in the Dhamma. But if your friends, companions, just by their mere presence in your life are causing you to lower your standards of virtue, then it's time for you to move on and find yourself a wiser set of friends, whom Lord Buddha calls Kalyana Mittas. In the Mangala Sutta, the first verse is about what? As to the source of happiness, the greatest fortune. He says to avoid the companionship of the fool. That is the first of highest glorious blessings that a person could have. And conversely, to find a companion or companions that are the opposite of fools, are intelligent. They help you to strive to be a better human being, a more virtuous being as such. Then you need to go find them. And numbers are not that important. You can have even one. And if you can't, you're in a place, let's say in the outside provinces, and you can't, don't worry. Don't worry. Because Lord Buddha says you will become like that lone tusker elephant who goes off and lives alone in the jungle. So, when you exercise restraint over your sense faculties, then development of your virtuous character is imminent, and you live with virtue. When there is thus the development of virtue in your life, then attaining to right collectedness of mind simply becomes inevitable. When you are thus able to attain to right collectedness of mind, then the knowledge and vision of seeing things as they are is possible for you. When the knowledge and vision of seeing things as they are does occur, then dispassion and disenchantment take place in you. And when dispassion and disenchantment take place in you, then the knowledge and vision of freedom occurs in you sooner or later. So that ends that sutta of today's, but to kind of top it off, I'd like to read to you here another sutta about the laity. And this would be the last, and we will stop after that. But I just want to read this and just to have you see what it does for you. And it's also, again, from the Anguttara Nikāya. It's from the Book of the Fives. So it's sutta number 5.179, Gihi Sutta. Gihi is, Gahapati is a layman, a householder. So Gihi is in the same root, so the laity. Therefore, Sariputta, this should be known, that any lay disciples wearing white robes, who live with virtue, restrained by the 5 precepts, the training rules regarding their activities and behavior, and who without much effort or difficulty quickly and easily experience the 4 higher states of mind, jhanas, that are the pleasant abidings here and now, and then if they so wished, they could declare to themselves, I will not be reborn in hell, nor in the animal realm, nor in the realm of hungry ghosts. No more am I destined for the lower states of existence, for I have entered the stream of the Dhamma, fixed in my bearing, with awakening being my final destination. Now, Lord Buddha is not just talking about anybody who has attained to the 4th jhana. There's other caveats to go with that. But basically, those are some of the qualities that basically is talking about a person who has, at the very least, is established in strong faith in the triple gem, even though they might not be sotapannas. But for them, it's unshakable, the faith. It's so strong that for them, it's undeniable. Nothing could come close. So even though they are not of the level of awakening, or they have the right of view as a person having a right view as a sotapanna does, nevertheless, but this is not just about those faith followers, but it's also for anyone who's attained sotapatti and above. So please bear that in mind. It's not just the jhanas, but the jhanas will assist a person to refine the mind with equanimity to attain to those states. That's what I'm trying to say. Having seen the dangers of hell and fearing them, restrain yourself by avoiding all things that bring back evil to you, by undertaking the true Dhamma of the noble ones. By the way, if you have truly attained, this is a good measure, to Sotapatti, or even a faith follower, it's impossible for you to not have faith in the presence, in the existence of heavens and hells. Just a test, litmus test for yourself. So if you feel like you don't have faith in the presence of hells and heavens, then chances are you're not a Sotapanna, okay? No matter what people have said. Not even close to being a faith follower. Because similarly, I've heard people mention names and people who've written books and claiming to the world that they have attained, noble status, like, Sotapatti and even Anagami. One of the quickest tests is to see how these people relate to the Triple Gem. For them, the Triple Gem become so sacred, suddenly, when the moment they attain. It's so sacrosanct. They're so humble in presence of it. Even when they use the words Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, it's of a different level. It's beyond anything they have experienced. Beauty and sublime, that's a word that comes to mind. Like they're touching, they're speaking about the sublime that is beyond anything mundane. And that's another way, a clue that this person might be a Sotapanna. But if you're a Sotapanna and above, that definitely has to happen. So you cannot be talking about, let's say, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, or an impersonal something out there, some secular, something out there that is inclusionary, like inclusive of other religions and things. No, that will never happen for a Sotapanna. It's impossible. Everything stops for them. In mid-sentence, when someone mentions the word Dhamma, their behavior speaks of that. So despite what a person might say, they need to be humbled in the presence of the Triple Gem. Even a mention, even a question comes up, their tone changes. Has to change. Because they are truly talking about the sacred. And it is sacred. So that's another clue. If you have doubts about a person or even yourself, where you're very blasé about the Triple Gem, it's like, yeah, whatever, it's like, it's the same thing as in Hinduism, something like that. And that's nonsense. It's in the qualities of the Dhamma, we see it's incomparable. Lord Buddha talks about it. And if you experience it, it is incomparable. You cannot compare. It's unsurpassed. But only the person will know this. No one can convince you. Having seen the dangers of hell and fearing them, restrain yourself by avoiding all things that bring back evil to you, by understanding the true Dhamma of the noble ones. The wise give up doing unwholesome behavior, doing their utmost to not harm living beings knowingly, not speaking falsely, nor touching others' belongings. Be content with your own mate, while exercising total restraint, and never entertain thoughts of being with another's mate. While speaking truthfully, give up also the taking of substances that confuse and delude the mind. So Dhamma and the use of hallucinogenics, out. I know it's the hip thing now. Everybody, every so-called educated academician, this and that, they're kind of even normalizing the use. In fact, they're encouraging it. You cannot be practicing the Dhamma of Lord Buddha and advocating for hallucinogenics. Okay? Mushrooms, oh, it's natural, Bhante. Oh, marijuana, it's natural. Yeah, mamba, black mamba's venom is very natural. Go ahead and take a sip of that if you want. Of course, I'm not advocating for that, but you will die. you will die. Hemlock is natural. How come no one's lining up to taste hemlock like Socrates? Focus your heart by recollecting the Buddha, reflecting on the good Dhamma. Probe its deep meanings day and night and all hours in between, cultivating a non-angry mind, experiencing benevolence in the heart. Soon you are led to the worlds of the Devas, and when able to give suitable gifts, offer them with careful attention, and give the best among them to the holy ones, for those are the ones that turn into bottomless oceans of merit. Sariputta, listen closely and I'll tell you more about the holy ones. In crossing the great Rohini River, the cattle passing through are made up of both the dirty and pure, some being spotted, beautiful, or dove-colored. But the best among these is the bull that's tamed, with the power and good speed to lead. It is to them that the heavy load is given, where their color matters not. In the same manner with human beings, whether born as warriors, Brahmins, merchants, householders, or outcasts, among all types of people, it is the tamed that are the best, righteous, virtuous, truthful, and endowed with wise moral shame. They're the ones to come to the end of the holy life, having put an end to death. They have put down the load, done what had to be done. They live now, desireless, taintless, and free from all mental contaminants. Gone beyond all thoughts, are extinguished without any grasping left in them. These are the holy ones, the supreme field of merit, the best for giving gifts. Yet, the dull-witted and those without understanding give gifts to the unappeased, unholy, ignoring the holy ones standing close by. As for those who revere the holy ones and the wise, their faith gets firmly established in the Tathagata. They either go to heaven or are born in good families here, gradually advancing to the state reached by the wise, the attainment that is Nibbana. Sadhu. Beautiful beyond words, as you can see. Every time you are present with sati, every time you practice sīla, samadhi, you give space, you give time for the tasting and experiencing of panya. You are extending the life of the Dhamma. How wonderful is that? If you want to repay or pay back Lord Buddha for the gift that he's given us, you can start from there. And it's a wonderful thing. You always have access to it, so long as you're alive. In this body, it's such a rare thing to be alive. Because underneath it, like I was mentioning in the guided meditation on death the other day I did, there's skeleton in here. Your skeleton, my skeleton's here. I'm carrying a cemetery with me everywhere I go. Cemetery with bones and everything. So what am I holding on to? What is there to hold on to? Nothing. So let me loosen up my shoulders and let me remove some of the unnecessary burden and load, which can be done with the practice of Hirī and Ottappa. So with that, I will stop and see if there might be some questions. Excuse me. Well, otherwise, then we'll just, we'll transfer some minutes. Akasatha chabumata deva nagamahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu loka sasanam Akasatha Chabumata Deva Nagamahidika Punyantang Anumoditva Chirang Rakhantu Desanam. Akasatha Chabumata Deva Nagamahidika Punyantang Anumoditva Chirang Rakhantu Mamparanti. May you all be well. May the Triple Gem bless you. May you make good use of this human birth. What a rare, rare, rare opportunity. Because now we're all in the central provinces. We are all in the presence of a Tathagata in the form of the Dhamma that is available. So there's no excuse. We are not in the hell realms. We're not in the animal realms. We're not in the Peta realms. And we have access to the Dhamma. What's the excuse? There shouldn't be any. I want you to live happy. And Dhamma is giving us that guarantee. Nibbana is the ultimate form of happiness. But you do it in, as in the Pali, Lord Buddha says, diteva dhamme, in this very birth, in this very life, in this here and now. Okay, so until next week, and I don't foresee there will be any breakups, I guess, because I'm not going to be moving for another month, I think, hopefully. So I'm looking forward to that next session. Be well. Sukhi Hota.